Yes, ma'am. We are live.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining in the webinar. I am Bharati, and on behalf of Careers 360, I would like to welcome you all to this session on choosing a specialization in computer sciences. So we have with us our distinguished speaker for today, Dr. Sanghi, who's Vice Chancellor at J.K. Lakshmipati University, Jaipur. So we chose to hold this session looking at the immense popularity of computer science among students and a visible curiosity to know about the different specializations, as well as how to go about choosing one specialization for oneself. I would take one more minute to help you know our speaker for today a little bit. So Dr. Sanghi is a pioneer researcher in the field of computer networks and network security. His interests lie in curricular design. He has advised several IITs, NITs, IIITs, and other reputed institutions, improving teaching learning processes, student counseling, and higher technical education. He is currently Vice Chancellor, J.K. Lakshmipati University, Jaipur, and was formerly Director Vice Chancellor at LNMIT, Jaipur. He is guest professor at IIT Gandhinagar and has taught at IIT Kanpur for 27 years. Thank you so much, sir, for sparing your time and joining us today. We have with us Ms. Prabha Dawala, editor with Careers 360, and she will be facilitating the conversation further on. So without any further ado, I would request Prabha ma'am to take over. Ma'am, over to you.
First of all, welcome, Dr. Sanghi. It's a pleasure and an honor to have you on board. My very first question is slightly, built up to the choosing of the computer science specializations. But before that, most of the students want to, take up a computer science, and it's like they don't know what exactly to entails studying in there. Or if you don't get computer science, can you look at other specializations also? So I would really like you to, suggest who should actually, choose computer science as a specialization. I mean, if you want to, do a degree in computer science, who is the right person to do that? And what kind of, qualities do you think students should develop or, think of having before they even venture out? Because many students don't really know all these things.
Thank you very much for having me here, and thanks, Careers 360. Now, this is a very interesting question, and I've written a lot about this choosing of computer science. I think a lot of people choose computer science not because they know anything about computer science or they're interested in computer science, but because they have heard that there are a lot of jobs in computer science. And what they have heard is partly correct and partly not so, truthful. So what we do have in computer science is a large number of jobs. So every year, the IT industry recruits 1.5 to 2 lakh people a year, which is more than any other branch of engineering. Okay. However, there is a catch here. And that catch is that we are producing 7 to 8 lakhs people who call themselves IT or CS engineers. So therefore, there is a huge number of people who will not get a software job or a job which is directly linked to the training that they have gone through. Okay. So in that sense, computer science is not very attractive. But in 12th class, everybody assumes that they are going to be in the top of their college. They are going to be the ones who are going to be in that. Secondly, the jobs which 10, 15 years ago, the service industry paid about 3 to 3.5 lakhs a year, which was an excellent job at that time. If you looked at other engineering disciplines, the salaries were half of that. But 10, 15 years later, today the service industry still pays about 3.5 lakh, 3.6 lakh. It has gone up maybe by 5-10% in 10 years, right? While the salaries in other branches have also caught up, not so much still, but so therefore it is no longer clear whether this is the best career to have. Okay? But yet, the change will come slowly. Now, what kind of person should do computer science? I think if you have good communication skills, good analytical skills, and some bit of abstraction, right? Because what computer science is looking at is it looks at a problem and tries to divide that into smaller problems and solve smaller problems and put the solution together. And that's how we work, right? Abstract out things, then solve that problem, and then bring it to the real life. So if you have those skills that you can think very logically, you can communicate that, because programming is nothing but communicating what you want to do to the computer, right? So if you can think logically, you can communicate that very clearly, and you can abstract things out, I think you are fit for computer science. Of course, I should refrain from saying that people who don't have skills like this should not do computer science, because I think there are always late bloomers. There are always people who pick up skills when in college, but there is clearly a risk if you don't have those skills. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I would ask you to address the students, with whatever inputs or suggestions you have before we actually go into the Q&A.
Yeah, so I think this thing about choosing specialization, many times these specializations are, what should I say, bhed chal. The specializations often mean that there are lots of low-tech jobs in that area, okay, which aren't going to help you in your life, because you have to think about how long is your career. Today, when you graduate at the age of 21, 22, 23, typically you should expect to work for about 50 years. Because even today, somebody like me, we hope to work till 68, 69, 70. By the time you are, is completely wrong. Okay. So don't go after the current facts. If you are interested in something, do it. If you are not interested in something, don't try to do it. Okay. And there are enough interesting things in life which will have careers for lifelong. Okay. So what you need today is basic education, which is high quality. Right? High quality education, which allows you to think, which allows you to learn, because learning lifelong is really the critical to your career. Nothing else is critical to your career. Having said that, let me give you an example of what specializations mean sometimes and what really happens in the real life. So, for example, when I was doing a PhD, so like 35 years ago, okay, I was working in networking area, which was not a popular area at that time when I started doing my PhD. Everybody was telling me, why are you doing this, right? But I was interested in this. By the time I finished my PhD, networking was the most popular area in computer science. And I would read all these reports saying, we need 100,000 people in networking. And I would wonder, what are these guys going to do? Right? When I joined IIT Kanpur as a faculty member, students will come to me and say, I want to do a networking project. And, similar to what people today come to faculty and say, I want to do an AI project or an ML project or whatever. Right? And I will tell them, there is nothing like a networking project. And I'll give them an example. I said, okay, think about it this way. I want to automate a hostel information system. There should be a server which has all the data. There are clients. People can reach out to this server, connect to this server, get information about, what's your mess bill or which room who is staying, etc., all kinds of things. And I would say, is this a networking project? And people will say, yes, of course, this is a networking project. And then I will say, okay, let's look at this as a pre-networking era. What would be the project look like? You will have one program which will have two modules, one module which handles the database and the query and so on, and one module which is the interface where you type in what you want. And these two modules talk to each other, and if it's the same program, just two modules, then it's just talking through through the memory, right? Clearly, you're not calling that as a networking project because there is no networking involved in this. Now, suppose I were to run these two modules separately and have some communication between these two modules. Now, that's 10 lines of code, right? So I'm writing all these big two modules, thousands of lines of code, and you're saying this is not a networking project. But if I add these 10 lines of code, it becomes a networking project. So this is what networking meant to people, right? You'll add 10 lines of code. I said there cannot be 100,000 people needed to write those 10 lines of code, which is actually the same 10 lines in every such application, right? So why were these 100,000 people needed? They were needed mainly because you want to configure some networking aspects. You want to configure DNS, you want to configure your router, you want to configure your other devices, or you want to check if some error has happened, you want to replace a switch, you want to replace a repeater, you want to lay some Ethernet cable, very low level jobs. That's what, people did after doing, a couple of courses in networking, right? And very soon those jobs were over because people realized these are low quality jobs. They can be automated. And today you don't talk about, network engineering is a high tech job now, but very few of them. You don't need so many poor quality jobs because particularly if you see configuration side, it's all automated. Right? So similarly, today when we talk about AI needing 100,000 people or 500,000 people, what these people do is do a little bit of Python programming, use some APIs, some standard things, right? There is really not enough AI jobs. So to me, AI means that are you going to do something, with the data, which is not trying out 5 different APIs and running something, right? Are you willing to do more than that? Are you being trained to do more than that? And the answer is no, you don't need so many people for doing that, right? So I think specialization one needs to be very careful about, are you getting high quality education, or that will make you an engineer at a higher level rather than becoming a technician. So quality of education is more important than the title of the degree. A typical computer science program will have about 10 compulsory courses and 7-8 electives. And when they say AI, it means that in those 7-8 elective courses, you will do 3 courses in AI. So I think a good education, in fact, would say, you don't decide in 12th class that I'm going to do a BTech AI. You go for BTech Computer Science, do those 10 compulsory courses. At the end of doing those 10 compulsory courses, by now you know what you're interested in. And now you can choose that these 8 courses I'm going to do randomly, I want a breadth, or out of these 8 courses, 4 courses I want to do in AI and I want a depth in AI. I think that is a program I would prefer much more than a program which at the time of 12th itself says you have to do these courses. I think flexibility in curriculum is very important. So that's all in terms of my opening statement. I think I took longer than what I was asked to do, but I would be happy to take questions.
Yeah, we'll just start off with the questions. Students, please raise your hands. Dipandita, would you just tell them what to do?
Yes, ma'am. Students, please use the reaction button below your screen and raise your hand. We will ask you to unmute, then you can ask your questions from sir. So please start raising your hands so that we can allow you to ask your question.
Yeah, we had some numbers, somebody with a number asking for, yeah, Pragun Sharma, I can just see. Can you just please unmute yourself, Pragun?
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening, Pragun. While asking questions, if you can also just have the video on for those few seconds, that would help. But if not, that's okay too.
Hello.
Yeah.
I think there's a bandwidth. I just wanted to know. I'm in class 12 nowadays. Like what you are saying, that there are a lot many courses with these specializations in computer science and engineering. CSE is the most sought after, and you rightly mentioned that these are the there are times when particular topic or particular subject area is much more sought after. But then I am told that there are certain restrictions on the by the regulatory authorities. So because most of the students are chasing for computer science, so then the intake, it is limited by the regulatory authorities, and that is why just to increase the seats, these various specializations like artificial intelligence, machine learning, and others have been introduced, so that the institute can have many, say 10 specialization in CSE, and then the intake will increase. And of course, few subjects here and there in the electives, and it is by and large the same thing as normal computer science and engineering. So I just wanted to ask sir that is it true like that? And because in fact there is a limitation.
I think there is some truth to it, and there was some truth to it maybe 20 years ago. Okay, at that time, AICT was very strict about giving out seats, and you would have only 60 seats in one discipline, and that's how this IT business started, right? Because I have 60 seats in computer science, I want another 60 seats, so I'll say, okay, 60 seats in IT. Today, the regulator is a little bit more flexible. Plus, you have lots of universities in the country, both in the government sector and the private sector, which don't need approval from the regulator for number of seats. Okay. So I think today when somebody is offering you a specialization in AI, it is not because they just want to increase the number of seats, but because they think they can sell AI seats more easily than a computer science seat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
I would like to ask you a question here, Dr. Sanghi.
Yeah.
What are the factors one has to look when they choose a specialization? Because everything for them at that point of time is kind of Greek and Latin only.
Yeah.
So how do you go about? What are the factors they have to look at?
So I think, as I said in my opening statement, if you have a program which says that I will allow you to do specialization during the program, that program is much better than a program which says you are getting into a specialization. Okay. So somebody, some university says you will degree will be BTech Computer Science, but as part of this degree, in the third and fourth year, you can do 5 courses stream in security, or a 5 courses stream in AI, or a 5 courses stream in IoT. That is the program I would prefer, because then I have time to understand where I'm getting into. I can do some computer science and then decide this is what I like, and do specialization in that. I think when we take up a specialized course at the end of 12th class, we are shooting in the dark, both in terms of content and as well as in terms of my interest. Right? So I will prefer those courses which start with computer science and have an inbuilt specialization.
Okay, that's a sensible thing, I guess, to do. I think, Sheila, would you just unmute yourself?
I think she did not have a question. There's a question in the chat box. Can we take that question?
Yes, we can.
Yes, there's a question where the student wants to know that I am very good. He's written here, he's a topper in CS in my school, and has participated in many inter-school competitions. He writes, I also have a very good hold on Python and SQL. What specialization should I choose?
So I would say that, again, the same question, the same answer that I said earlier, that choose a program which allows you to choose specialization a little bit later, right? Because the fact that you're good at programming means that you can really pick up any specialization. I mean, programming is the most basic skill which is needed for computer science, not the only skill, but the most basic skill, and any specialization will require that. Okay? Having said that, I think one should also think in terms of, like, is your hobby same as the career that you want? Okay, so think about all those things, because, for example, if you want to get into, so competitive programming, for example, is very different from the kind of programming you will do in a company, right? When you're building a software. So is your hobby going to lead to, so you might feel frustrated because there is no instant gratification, which you have in the competitive program, right? So think about all those issues as well. But as far as specialization is concerned, there's one more thing I'll talk about specialization. Sorry if it's not relevant to the question. See, there are specializations which I would consider as evergreen, right? For example, security. Security is a specialization which was very heavily in demand 10 years ago. It was heavily in demand 20 years ago. It is heavily in demand today. And I don't see in the next 20, 30 years it is going away. Okay. Because there is always going to be now a fight between the hackers and the good guys. This good guys, bad guys will remain for the next 100 years, I can see that. Okay. Why is it that we don't hear of security as a specialization? There are some programs which are specializing in security, but not a whole lot. Why is it that we're looking at AI, ML, data science as specializations? It is because in AI, you can create a low quality engineer very easily. In security, there is nothing like a low quality engineer. Either you understand things very well or you are useless as far as security engineer is concerned, right? So, now this leads to, I mean, are you interested in just a title of being AI engineer, which will mean nothing for your career? Because that's what most colleges are doing. They are producing low quality AI engineer. They're not producing security engineer, because there is nothing like low quality security. So I have a, this thing like, do you really want to choose specialization at the end of 12th class? I would not do that. I would choose computer science, will wait for 2 years, and then say what specialization I want. And most good colleges will allow that specialization to you at that time.
We have Debu. Debu, please unmute yourself. Can you ask the question?
Good evening, sir. Sir,
Good evening.
my question is there, is it necessary to take admission in best colleges for BTech Computer Science Engineering like WIT, BitSet, Pilani or NEET? Is it necessary to take admissions in these colleges?
So you should always take admission in the best college that you can get, right? Out of all the options that you have. So if you are interested in a computer science as a basic degree, and you have admission in 4 places in computer science, see which is the best program that will, best. Okay, the only thing I will say is best means what? Best may mean to you, the curriculum is very good, the faculty is very good, but the best could also be whether you're going to enjoy that place. So my definition of best is only partly academic. But if you're going to go to a college which doesn't have student life, you may feel so bored that where did I come here, and you may not be able to study there because you are always bored there, right? So best is a difficult to define concept, but whatever is the best in your mind, both in terms of academics as well as in terms of extracurricular life and so on and so forth, I think we should always go there. I mean, why would you not go to best? Tell me that first. I mean, isn't this obvious that you go to best?
I think he meant it. Getting into an IIT or NIT is hard. So even this has so much of competition and the seats are less. So everyone wants to get into computer science. So the kind of thing is like, if you can get a college which is nearby, is it okay, to do a computer science degree in that? But yeah. So which brings me to my next question. That supposing somebody has chosen, say, computer science with AI or ML, would that be restrictive when they are doing the degree when compared to somebody who's doing computer science as a degree?
No, it will not be restrictive. As I said, typically a BTech program will have, let's say, 17, 18, 19 courses in that discipline. So a computer science degree would normally mean that you have about 10 compulsory courses. And then you have about 7, 8 electives, which you could do broad-based. Okay. And when they say a BTech in AI, typically what that means is that those 10 courses that the BTECCSE were doing, you will do those 10 courses. But out of the 7, 8 electives, you may have 4 or 5 compulsory courses, which are, AI, statistics, regression, machine learning, etc. So you will not have as many electives. So you are choosing to be more specialized than a broad base by having less electives and doing courses in a particular area. But the basics will be same in both cases. Therefore, there is no danger that, what if AI is no longer a fad 5 years from now? You will have the basic education.
Okay. Ashi, can you unmute yourself and ask your question, please? Ashi, you will have to unmute yourself. Dipandita, would you help her out with that?
Ma'am, she is not unmuting herself.
Yeah. Hello, ma'am. Good
Yeah.
evening, sir. Sir, I want to know that I don't know about programming anything about it, but I want to graduate in it. So should I go for it or not? Because everyone has hyped it that computer science should be taken to get a good job.
Okay. So programming, if you are good at programming in school, then it is an indication that you will like computer science. But if you are not done programming, it's not a minus. A lot of people do programming without ever doing. I mean, a lot of people do BTech computer science without ever doing programming. So I wouldn't say that don't go for computer science because you have not done programming. I mean, that's probably the majority, in fact, right? But if you are doing computer science only for the purpose of a job, right? My take is good quality education will have a good career irrespective of discipline. So suppose you are getting a poor quality college in computer science and a very good quality college in mechanical, I would say go for mechanical. Right? Good education is better than a discipline. But if you're interested in computer science somehow, when if you've not done programming, you're probably not interested in computer science as of now, then you must do computer science. If you know you're interested in computer science, you've done a lot of programming and so on and so forth, then you should do, even if it is not such a great college, then you should do computer science because that's your passion, that's your interest.
Now we have MK. Would you please unmute yourself and ask your question, please?
Good evening, sir. With much respect, I would like to ask you the question that since my high school days, I have been much interested in programming languages, and currently I am aspiring for the competitive exams to get into a BTech course. So, sir, which course under BTech Computer Science would you think would be best suited for my passion and would most develop me?
I think, look, any good computer science program, whether it's IITs or NITs or IIIT Hyderabad, IIIT Delhi, BITS Pilani, I mean, these are all very fine institutions. In any of these institutions, you will do a lot of programming. I mean, computer science, most courses will have programming projects, etc. So I don't think, there is really going to be any dearth of programming. So your interest and your passion will be taken care of. Plus, it doesn't really have to be a course project. While you are doing a degree in a particular college, you can continue to work on open source projects which are online. There are competitive programming sites. You can go there. So your programming interest can be sustained even if you go to a college which doesn't have such a high quality computer science program. Suppose, I mean, God forbid, you don't get into these top colleges, right? But programming you can still do because there's just so many opportunities online for both competitive programming as well as open source programming.
Yeah. One of the other questions that comes commonly from students is like, supposing they don't get into CS, but they are getting a seat in IT. Would that be an okay thing? Would they have the equal kind of job opportunities? Would that be a good career still?
No, that's an excellent question. So I think we need to go back to the history of why IT, right? And we kind of alluded to it in the beginning when we said in the year 95 or so, when about this Y2K problem was very apparent, and everybody wanted to do computer science to solve that problem. AICT was being very rigid about 60 seats in a program. And therefore, people said, okay, let me start new programs for IT. Okay. So what happened at that time in various colleges was that there was a department of computer science which was existing for 5, 10, 15 years. And there is a new department called IT was being set up, right? Now, if you think about it, if I am a faculty applicant in that college and I'm selected, and if I have a choice, I will say I want to be part of a computer science department and not IT department, because it's a old existing program. I understand this and so on. So in most colleges, the computer science department was better department in some sense, because only those people who did not get into computer science got to IT. Right? Even the students will get into IT only if they don't get into computer science. I've heard of computer science for 10 years. So basically the curriculum was similar. There was no difference. But the set of students around you and the set of faculty around you would be poorer. Right? Now, today, that colleges may have changed, may have tried to bring about better faculty in both and so on, but that feeling has remained in the market. So even industry would say, if in a college you have CS and IT, I would prefer CS because there is this perception. Reality doesn't matter in these matters. The perception is that the computer science is a better program than IT, even if the courses are largely the same. So, and therefore, if you see, many colleges are closing IT program because today, as I said, the regulator is not so strict about number of seats. So if I have 60 seats in computer science and 60 in IT, many colleges are closing IT and making those seats as 120 CS seats. Right? It's because of perception. There is no difference in curriculum and anything else.
Yeah, actually, many of the students feel that they do not have a good opportunity, and that's just a feeling. But that's how it is. What about supposing a child joins into a computer science program in a college? What are the other avenues that he or she should explore? Because a curriculum is fixed in every college. There is always a set of things only that they can teach within these 4 years. But the market requires you to have a lot of other inputs, a lot of other insights, and you will be only good if you have those skills. So what would you suggest to any student who would be, joining into a program?
Right. So one is that, you should be very good at programming. That's the most basic skill in computer science, right? And many colleges, unfortunately, don't emphasize on this programming thing. So we have this very strange phenomena in this country that almost 99% of students with BTech Computer Science or BTech IT cannot write 500 lines of code. Okay, and that's because when you go to a college, typically you are told that it's okay to copy, it's okay to cheat, it's okay to not learn, right? So I always tell students that if you can make sure that you keep doing programming, even outside the college, if the college doesn't encourage you, the college doesn't have good labs and so on, there are enough outside opportunities to follow that, both in terms of competitive and open source, as I said a little bit earlier, right? The second thing I would say is, to learn typical skills like data structures, algorithms, or whatever, there are a lot of online courses which are fantastic, right? And they're free. There are a lot of free stuff available online. And therefore, if the college teacher is not so good, learn from somewhere else. If you are a computer science student and at the end of 4 years, you don't have enough skills, you can't blame the college today, because there's so much available online that, you should be, in fact, I wonder why these colleges exist, because I think in 10 years time, the industry will stop looking at degrees. They will look at only your knowledge and skills, right? Already some of, big companies like Google have started doing that. So what will happen to all these colleges when degrees no longer needed, right? So people are learning through online medium. So that's what I would suggest. In terms of what else can you do besides programming and computer science in general, I think problem solving skills and abstraction, critical thinking. For example, critical thinking. It is a very important skill for any engineer, right? How do you learn critical thinking? By reading literature and by reading history, right? To get into the habit of reading books, okay, good literature will make you a good programmer. That may sound very strange, but critical thinking is very important for computer scientists. And literature reading helps you ask the right kind of questions. Okay. So I would say, besides computer science, if you can just make sure that you read one book a month, a good book a month, I think that would take you very far.
MK seems to have one more question. Please unmute yourself, MK, and ask your question, please.
Sir, sorry for the interruption, but I would like to raise a question. Could you just brief me about the subjects that are currently streaming on top of all subjects in BTech Computer Science in any college?
Yeah, so I think that today the most popular thing is this artificial intelligence, machine learning, data science. These are all related stuff, deep learning. This is the in thing today. And really, a lot of problems are getting solved through these techniques, right? Today, your medical diagnosis, for example, there are all kinds of correlations that are being looked at. And, so even before your blood test will tell you something. For example, I don't know whether Google did it or Microsoft did it. They look into your eyes, and just by looking into your eyes, they can tell you what is the probability of you getting a heart attack, right? Because there is a correlation of your heart problems and your retina image, right? So those correlations are being detected, found out through AI ML. So they are very important technologies, and they are very exciting technologies, right? So therefore, those are the ones which people are really want to do in any computer science program. If you don't have 2-3 electives in these things, then that program is not considered good today.
Yeah. My next question would be that how does one prepare? Because you see, when initially computer science came in, there were a lot of languages. There was Basic, Fox Pro, and all those things. Now nobody listens or hears about them. Then there is C, C++, and then Python is there, R is there. New stuff is coming. And how does one, prepare, or how does one gauge these things? Because by the time you finish your 4 years, and then you get into a job, you need to be more, into the new stuff. So it's a continuous updation. How do you gauge that?
Absolutely. Great question. As I said a little while ago, all of you guys are going to work for 50 years. And there is nothing that we're going to teach in these 4 years which will be applicable 50 years from now. Okay. So one skill that you really want to pick up before you get into the job is how to learn yourself. And, that is why I also mentioned that while doing your BTech, get into the habit of reading, get into the habit of learning certain things online and so on, because that's preparing you to learn yourself. Okay. Now, we somehow feel very threatened when technology moves at this fast pace. And you mentioned so many programming languages, in 1960, we had Fortran, then we had BASIC, and all those things that have come up. But the point is that if you know one programming language very well, then learning another programming language is a matter of days, right? If you know C very well, Python is a very different kind of language, right? And yet I would say a good C person can learn Python in 5 days, or vice versa for that matter, right? So we should not be afraid of technology or afraid of change. It's just that I should have this habit of learning on my own. Okay. And really speaking, when you look at adult learning is, done by connecting dots. The more I know, the more easy it is for me to learn new things. Because when I learn something new, I need to connect it with my existing knowledge, right? And that's why, in the college days, students should try to learn as many things as possible, because it's not going to be easy to do that during the career, right? So if you know a lot of things, so in fact, most good colleges will insist that you learn not only just computer science, but you also have a course in electrical engineering, you have a course in mechanical engineering, you have some physics course, some maths course, some even sociology, psychology. You do learn a lot of different things in your BTech program. And students hate it at that time. Why am I learning this? Why am I wasting time? But you're learning this because this will help you future learning. The more you know, the easier it is for you to learn in future. So the important skill is learning yourself.
How much of mathematics is required is one of the questions that comes, because computer science, many people associate that strong knowledge of mathematics to be really very good at it. Is that so much of true when it comes to computer programming? And
So I think some bit of mathematics it helps you, okay. But if you are really trying to, let me tell you how computer science and how mathematics will help you in solving problems, right? So for example, if I'm asked to write a program, and the program is take a number n and find out what is the sum of all numbers from 1 to n. So if I say number 10, I should be able to output 1 plus 2 plus 3 up to 10, right? Now, if I don't know much maths, I can write a 5-line of code which will say read n for I is equal to 1 to n, sum is equal to sum plus I. That's it, right? But if I know maths, I will say, yeah, this is the formula. This is n into n plus 1 by 2, right? I don't have to write a program which is slow, which is going to take a lot of time and so on. I can just use a mathematical formula. So in solving problems, knowing maths can give me shortcuts into solution, right? Having said that, I think if you are also trying to be a researcher, if you're trying to come up with new models, if you're trying to come up with new analysis, then maths will be important. But maths will not be important for 99% of the people working in software industry. So maths is useful for broadening of horizon. Maths is useful for becoming a little bit efficient in programming. So basic maths up to 12th class maths is good enough for that purpose. Anything beyond that is only meant for solving higher level problems, which most people will not do that in their careers.
We have Pragun Sharma who wants to ask you a question. Pragun, would you unmute yourself, please?
Hello. Yeah. Good evening. One more question, sir. I have seen a new course, BTech course, that is BTech in mathematics and computing. It has been offered in some of the IITs and IISc Bangalore. So what do you say about this course vis-a-vis BTech in computer science?
Right.
Please, sir.
Yeah, so I think, look, the history of this course really is that, mathematics departments, for example, in IIT Kanpur, we did this about 15, 20 years ago. The mathematics department was not attracting enough students. and they said, if we offer a few computer science courses along with our maths thing, then maybe we will have more students. So that's how these courses started, right? And so typically in many colleges, the computer science courses are also taught by maths faculty, right? So therefore, be wary of these courses. But there are some places which have, a truly an interdisciplinary program where computer science courses are taught by computer science faculty, maths courses are taught by maths faculty. Those programs are great. I mean, assuming you are a fan of maths, right? So basically, the idea is that there are a lot of people, by the way, including my own son, who says, I'm confused between maths and computing, right? So you say, okay, study both, right? So they are, so they are primarily making sure that you do enough computer science so that you can have a career in computer science. But it meets your need for, satisfying, like, I'm really keen on maths, I want to do a lot of maths courses, so it gives you that satisfaction. On the other hand, there are some people who say, you know what, I really want to study maths. I'm not sure I want to have a career in maths or what kind of jobs I will have at the end of this. So maybe I want to do a few computer science courses on the side so that if I am not able to find a good career in maths, I will have a career based on CS. So that also gets satisfied with these kinds of programs. So I think these are good programs. Particularly again, if it's offered by a good quality institution, then go for it. And the basic computer science, just like what I also said about AI, that you have some 8-10 courses which you are going to do as compulsory CS courses. They will be done by maths and computing. You will not have enough electives in computing because you are doing 2 subjects in the same 4 years, right? But I'm excited about these combinations.
Dipandita, we have some questions in the chat box, I believe. Can you just ask those two?
Yes, Shama. Sir, the first question is from a student who wants to know what is the difference between BTECCSE and BECSE?
There is absolutely no difference between BTECCSE and BECSE. See, one should not go with the names of the degree programs, right? Because as we just a little bit earlier talked about BTech Computer Science versus BTech IT. The BTech Computer Science that one college offers is very different from BTech Computer Science that another college offers. So within BTech Computer Science, there is a differentiation. Each college is autonomous, each university at least is autonomous, and there will be differences. The program offered by IIT Kanpur is very different from the program offered by IIT Bombay. So therefore, there is a difference between BTech CS of IIT Kanpur and BTech CS of IIT Bombay, right? So to that extent, there can be differences between any two programs irrespective of the name. But the name itself reflects nothing. BTech BE, it's a historical thing. Some colleges and universities have historically given BTech. Some colleges and universities have historically given BE.
Yeah. I come back to another question here. So there are different degrees again, like an MCA is there and a BTech is there. When you look at it, MCA is a postgraduate program, but it's just not considered as equal, and there will always be a preference for a BTech graduate when you compare it with MCA. So how does that work out and why is it so like?
So again, we need to go back to the history of MCA program to understand why it is not considered a very good program by many people in industry. So many things in our computer science education have been impacted by things in the 90s when this Y2K problem was looming large, and we needed suddenly a very large number of software engineers of all kinds. So at that time in the early 90s, people said, how do we get, let's say, 500,000 extra software engineers within the next few years, right? Setting up engineering colleges, because engineering colleges meant not just a computing lab, but engineering colleges would also have workshop. Engineering colleges would have people in physics and mechanical, electrical, and all that kind of stuff. So somebody came up with this bright idea that why not I take people from BSc and convert them into computer science and into software engineers, right? That's how this MCA thing came up. And somebody who has not done any computing, of course, will take about 3 years to understand computing and write enough piece of code and develop applications and so on. Therefore, it was a 3-year program. And I think, in India, we have a very strange notions about degrees. The curriculum of MCA was essentially, it's a first degree, right? Because you are assuming that you have done no programming or no computer science in the past. So this is the first degree in computer science that you're talking about. But because you have already done a bachelor's degree, people said we will not be able to popularize this degree if we were to say this is BSc computer science or BTech computer science, right? Ideally, that is what should have happened. This is the first degree, so the bachelor's degree, you're doing second bachelor's, right? But it was named as master's degree for that reason, that otherwise will not become popular enough. People worry about this bachelor versus master's. But remember that these are not, fully engineers in some sense, because they don't have the background of, non-computer science courses that a typical BTech guy would do. There is also this notion in this country that if after 12th you went into a relatively poor quality college, you can never be good. In the first opening statement, I talked about late bloomers. Not many people believe about late bloomers. So people will feel that if this guy didn't get into BTech after 12th and he went to this BSc program in a local college, then he's a bad student to begin with. Now we're collecting this bunch of bad students and going through a 3-year program and how much better they can be, right? And indeed, what you will find is that a large number of colleges which encashed on this Y2K problem by offering MCA, it was a very expensive program and you'd hardly need a lab or something. So a lot of profit making happened, a lot of poor quality education. While there were even NITs and Roorkee offering MCA program, which was of high quality, but there were very few such high quality programs. Most of the people just said, let me get local grads, not even BSc, but BCom also, and just make them go through 3 years of program, and I don't care what happens to them afterwards. So MCA was actually just a money-making thing for a lot of colleges. So that impression, so as I said, there were good quality programs. Pune University has very good quality program. Roorkee had, many NITs had, but there were few compared to this whole mafia of private colleges which offered this poor quality stuff. So that impression has got stuck with it, and therefore even today people find it difficult to find a job after MCA compared to BTech.
Deepandita, some more questions in the chat box, please ask them.
Yes, ma'am. So the next question is from Sharvi. She is in class 12th. So she wants to know that which computer science admissions exams that she can appear for.
Computer science admission, I don't know. I mean, engineering admissions typically go through this JEE and BITSAT, and many of the private colleges like Manipal and BIT, they have their own entrance test. Many of the states have their own entrance test for all engineering programs in general, right? There is nothing specific about computer science engineering. I don't know how this common admission test for the universities will work, which was announced a few weeks ago by UGC, because some central universities do have at the undergraduate level a computing program. So whether that admission will happen through CUSET or something else, I don't know. But most of the engineering programs are through these other, through a common test, which is across engineering, so JEE, BITSAT, and so on.
Yeah. Deepandita, are there more questions?
Yes, and one last question from Sasha. She wants to know that she is in class 10th, and she says, I have never been attentive to my computer classes in school. So I have very little knowledge about Python and such languages, but can I still apply for computer sciences ahead?
Absolutely. I think this was asked earlier also. I think the fact that you don't know computer science or programming right now is no bar on you becoming a good computer scientist later on. After all, somebody like me who did computer science from IIT Kanpur, in those days, we didn't have computers, and 40 years ago, there was no computers at home or even in most colleges and so on. So, I mean, if I could do computer science without doing any programming in school, anybody else can. So I don't think that's an issue at all. Please go ahead. If you think you will like computer science, welcome to this discipline, and hope for the best.
Yeah. One question that I have is like when the recruitment goes on, the other engineering graduates are also considered. For the IT industry takes up all these engineering graduates. So if you do not get a seat in computer science, and you are a mechanical engineer or some other branch, like you said, if you get into a good college, you can choose that. But the passion still remains computer science and wanting to go into that line. So what would your advice be to such students? What should they do, to be on par?
So I think, first of all, try to study in as good a college in general as possible, right? So if you're getting mechanical, take it, right? Now, typically a good BTech program, even in mechanical, today will require at least 2 computer science courses, right? You will definitely have a programming course, and any decent college would also have another course in data structures. And nowadays, people are increasingly having a third course on AI or IoT or some other latest technologies, right? In addition, online, right? Look at, the basic 3-4 computer science courses. That's all you need to do to get a good career in computer science, right? So programming, data structures, algorithms, some organization, these 4 or 5 things, if you do, whatever is not in your curriculum, see if you can do that as an elective in your college. If college doesn't offer that many electives, do it online. And then at the end of third year, in your final year or third year, you can do GATE, which is, and you can give GATE in computer science, right? And once you do get a decent GATE score, you will be able to do MTech in computer science from anywhere, irrespective of what your degree in BTech was. Okay? So GATE computer science course will determine your eligibility, and getting a good GATE score does not require you to do BTech computer science. These 4 or 5 courses that I talked about and a little bit of GATE coaching will take you very far. You can get good 99% kind of score with just that. And therefore, you can still meet your aspirations or your interest in computer science and having a career which requires those kinds of skills. So don't worry about it, but go for good quality education.
Okay. One last question that I have is, what are the factors like students should look for? Because the choice of college is restricted when it comes to the best colleges. So what kind of factors should one look when you are choosing a college for computer science or for that matter, any degree?
Right. See, I would say that quality of faculty is the most important thing in selecting a college. Of course, it's difficult for a 12th class student to know, by going through the website of 2 colleges, can they really compare the faculty? That's a question that, and I think there are some ways you can do that. But if you can, say the quality of faculty, that's the number one, right? The second thing I would say is the curriculum, how much flexibility they have in the curriculum. I think the more rigid it is going to be boring for you, because you have no idea of your interest, and therefore a curriculum which allows a lot of electives, which allows you to choose specialization a little later on, that is very important for a 12th class student. And then comes anything else, how good is the infrastructure and so on and so forth. But these 2 things are important. How do you detect like good faculty? Typically, the faculty has studied in good colleges. So you do know what are the good colleges. So if the faculty has studied in good colleges, then they're likely to be good faculty, right? And that's a very simple way of putting it. Okay. I would also say that the college that you want to take admission in, suppose you have chosen that, these are the 5 colleges which I can, at my performance level of JEE and 12th class and so on and so forth, I think I can get admission in these 5 colleges. If you can afford it, go to those 5 colleges. Meet the students, meet the faculty, and you will have something inside you which will tell you which is a good college. Believe me, I've done this with 2 of my kids. This works all the time. There are things that you will learn there that you will immediately say, this is good college, this is not so good college. Okay. So first, go to the website, look at faculty, look at curriculum. And second, if possible, if you can afford it, visit them. Right? This is what I would suggest.
Okay. One more question that I have is like many students target or wish to go abroad. That's what they want to do. They want to do their UG only abroad. So what is the scope? Are there any specific countries or universities that one can target, at this point of time? Yeah.
Right. So going abroad, is pretty expensive usually. And therefore, if you're going abroad, mostly you should be looking at working there for at least some time, so that, you know, whatever money you have invested, you can earn that much. So it doesn't make sense to spend in dollars and earn in rupees, right? So if you're spending in dollars, earn in dollars also for some time at least, then you can come back. So countries which allow you to earn, essentially, has to be one important criteria. In that sense, you know, if you look at US, Canada, these two have always had very liberal policies in terms of post-study experience. You know, US allows 3 years of post-study jobs without any job visa, you know, on your student visa itself, right? Canada has similar rules. Australia, we just last week, Government of India has signed an agreement with Australia, which will allow very liberal post-STEM degree job in Australia. UK is another example where they had restricted this post, education visa a few years ago, and suddenly the number of students going to UK drastically dropped. But in a couple of years ago, they made it more liberal again, and again this year, a lot of students have gone to UK. So I think visa issue is a very important issue. Of course, if you have multiple options, then again I would say, you know, what college gives you higher quality education, and of course cost is another big factor, because, for example, in US you have colleges which will cost you 60-70 lakhs per year, and there are colleges which will cost you 20-30 lakhs per year. And you know, so if that also becomes a very important thing. It may not become such an important thing in India, where the difference could be between 2 lakhs and 4 lakhs, but if it is difference between 30 lakhs and 60 lakhs, that's a huge difference, right? So these are the countries, these 4 countries that I mentioned. I'm sure there are other countries which have liberal visa policy, but that's the thing to look for.
Yeah. We have one last question we can pick up from Sai Jayarasimha Reddy. Would you please unmute yourself?
Good evening, sir. Sir, right now I'm studying 12th class and I don't have any idea about programming and computer languages, sir. Whereas many students already good at computer languages. How can I compete with them in my BTech, sir?
Okay. So, you know, it's a good question, and I'm glad that you asked it. You don't need to worry about it at all, okay? Because my experience of teaching first-year courses is that out of 100 students that I teach, maybe 50 students have prior programming experience. So firstly, there is a large number of people who still do not have any programming experience, and therefore, you know, you don't need to worry about it at all. Right? Now, more importantly, out of 50 students who have programming experience, at least 45 are those who have done programming in a very, very poor quality way. My challenge as a teacher typically is how to make them forget programming. So you are going to be much better than those 45, right? So there are only 5 people out of 100 who do programming very well, right? So you shouldn't worry about if there are 5 people who are much better than you, right? In a class of 100, you are certainly better than 45, and you are equal to other 50, and there are only 5 people better than you. Why worry? This is going to happen in every subject, right? So don't worry at all if you don't know programming. You can do, you know, computer science. You know, you can learn everything in college. That's it.
I think we have had a wonderful session with so many of insights. Vardi, would you take over, please?
Yeah. I would just like to extend my heartfelt thanks on behalf of Careers 360 to you, Dr. Sanghi. Thank you so much for sparing your time and choosing to inform our students today. Thank you so much, all the students, for joining in. And I would like to inform you that we have a series of webinars planned for you on science, commerce, humanities, studying abroad, and various different aspects of higher education. To know about them, please stay tuned to careers360.com/premium, and we'll be there to help you. Thank you so much, everybody, once again, and we would like to close this now.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.